Hey everyone, welcome back for a new collections video. This time we are looking at the Xbox One. So with that said, let's get a quick little starter pack out of the way. First of which is Starlinks. Also, for some reason, had separated the game itself. Now Starlinks, I remember when I got this on clearance at GameStop, it was $9.99 for this brand new. Which is why I ended up buying Starlinks in the first place, was just because of how good a price it was. And it is actually a solid game, in all honesty. I do highly recommend checking this game out, as it is dirt cheap. Next up, we have the awesome bundle, Gears of War, Ultimate Edition with, of course, Rare Replay, which is 30 all-time classic games. Next, another cool bundle, Inside with Limbo. As I've said before many times, love both games, though I'm a bit more partial to Limbo. I like how the puzzles and stuff work in Limbo specifically. I like it because a lot of them are like gravity puzzles and things like that, which I actually really enjoy. And just overall the art style, but I gotta say Inside is a really nice looking game. Next up we have Forza Horizon 3. As I've said before, I'm not a big racing fan personally, but I've always enjoyed the Forza Horizon series specifically, as you can go off track and everything and roam around and just enjoy the beautiful scenery and the world that was designed, because the games are gorgeous looking. And also, as you see, and this is 3, so yeah, even bigger jump. Next, you have my personal favorite, Forza Horizon 4, which is quite fun. Plus, it has that cool Lego expansion as well in the game. And I love the fact they have classic cars like that in here. It's very much appreciated. Next up, Ori and the Blind Force, which is definitely a great indie game in my opinion. Actually, both Ori games. I like the combat in the second one, but Ori and the Blind Force is just a gorgeous looking game. The art style and everything, the music, it is all superb. And of course, next, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. As you see, this is still factory sale because I also have a digital copy of the game, so. But I gotta say, I actually love the cover art of this one just a little bit more from the first one. Again, like the first game, beautiful, more awesome boss chasing and stuff in the game, which I actually enjoy. I like the challenge that the games present and just the beautiful art style that goes with it. Another really awesome platformer in the game. Well, not as much true indie as Insomniac developed the game with alongside GameStop, strangely enough. Which is why this was like a GameStop exclusive. And if you've never actually tried Song of the Deep, I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful, underwater platformer. I like it more. I'm surprised more people actually don't talk about this game. Next up, one of my personal favorite platformers of the 8th generation is Super Lucky's Tale. One, the fact it actually does look like a polished game, and two, I do love actually the art style that they used with it, because it really, you can tell that the game was heavily influenced by games like, obviously, Crash, but I would say even more so it was obviously heavily influenced by other games like the N64 era of platformers, especially so, the way it plays overall. Just love the overall aesthetic and look of the game. And it is actually a blast to play. Next up, Kingdom Hearts 3. Of course, need no introduction. Personally, I do like quite a bit this cover art. I think it's actually really nice. I just like the way they implemented the different colors to it. Of course, Kingdom Hearts 3 is a solid game. It's easily in the top 5 best Kingdom Hearts games, alongside Birth by Sleep 1 and 2, as well as Dream Drop Distance. I especially enjoyed Pirate's World, being more of an open world style game with lots of awesome naval combat. Next up, a game most people have forgotten about, a little game. Sadly, the regular servers were shut down. You can still play it as long as you have a physical copy, and that is Project Spark. It was a very interesting game for when it came out early on. I guess you could call Dreams PlayStation's equivalent. The PlayStation has actually shown more support to Dreams than Microsoft showed to Project Spark, as this game was experimenting and had briefly where you could actually play with a sort of reimagined like Conquer as well. And I actually like the basic, even though I can't do as much now. I still actually occasionally like going on playing like a new mini world custom created. I actually still enjoy quite a bit occasionally going back to Project Spark. I just wish more people had known about this game and shown support. Then it may have not been killed. Next up, an interesting RPG game called Beast Quest. Another game I'm surprised I have not seen a lot of people talk about. Now, keep in mind this is also on PS4, but the actual aesthetic, like some of the creature design stuff, actually reminds me a bit of Harry Potter. Now, graphically, this game is not super impressive. Um, this graphically looks more like a game from the PS3 360, the 7th console generation, but this was an earlier title on 8th gen, so can let that slide. Next up, of course, absolutely love this game, and that is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Beautiful game, and yeah, I've got this game like 3 times. That should say how much I actually enjoy this. But this was the first version of the game I actually got, was the Xbox One version, but I love the art style and everything, but keep in mind that's because I'm a fan of Igarashi, the one who created this, as well as, of course, created the greatest Castlevania of all time, that being obviously Symphony of the Night. Next up, a somewhat underrated game in my personal perspective with Darksiders Genesis. I'm surprised more people don't actually talk about this game, as it is actually a solid overall game. If you like games like, well, if you like games like Diablo, I think you would actually really enjoy this. Just my perspective, though, but it definitely plays very different, and maybe it's one of the things I actually like about the game. Next, we have the deluxe edition of the base version of Final Fantasy 15. Love the overall, just the look of the case. I think it's gorgeous, personally. Plus, also comes with the movie as well. Next we have Halo 5 Guardians. Which I gotta admit, I do like the hefty and size of the actual steelbook. This game arguably is probably the weakest of the mainline games. Though obviously you don't really play with Master Chief, unfortunately. Next up, Halo Wars 2. Great game, and yeah, this is the Ultimate Edition, which also includes a DLC code to play also Halo Definitive Edition, the original game, along with also includes the Season Pass. Great game, and I highly recommend checking out the Halo Wars spin-off games. I think they're actually really solid, but this is speaking as a fan of the old Command & Conquer series. Next up, of course, need no introduction. I talk about this game constantly. Love it. MVCI. I actually really like the cover art for the most part. I think it looks good, and I'm just a huge fan of the overall design of Ultron Sigma. Next up, we have Mirror's Edge Catalyst, which is what the music is in the background you hear. And yes, 2 copies, 1 factory sealed and then 1 to play. Just because got it super cheap. Can't pass up good deals. Next up, Monster Hunter World, vanilla version. Interesting game overall. If you enjoy the Monster Hunter series, though, I'm rather still partial to Monster Hunter or Ultimate 3. And Rise. Now, here's an interesting game, to say the least. A somewhat, I think, hidden gem game. Mother Gunship. It's a really weird, sort of bizarre game, but I like it for its weird uniqueness. It's a very unique game compared to many other games of this time period. Also, admittedly, I do like the cover art as well. Next up, a more story-driven game, an episodic style game. If you like actually a pretty interesting and unique story with mystery and stuff, I actually recommend checking out this game. It's actually I think it's a pretty nice looking world. For being a much lower budget game, I'm actually surprised at how good overall the environment looks. But I'm the type of person who does like a good mystery story now and then. And this is something that actually really helps fill in that little spot. Next up, we have the Raven Remastered, an upper episodic type of game. This was originally released in the 7th gen, and just got a re-release remaster then for the 8th generation. It's definitely an interesting story overall, and unique. And once again, another episodic game I actually do recommend checking out. Then we have a game that I actually find myself a defender of. Yes, it's definitely had some major glitch issues and stuff, but personally, I still actually enjoyed ReCore, an action platformer. If it's interesting, like machines and everything, I personally rather enjoyed this game, and I'm amazed actually how much hate it gets. I don't get why, but it's a game I will occasionally find myself defending online. I don't know why the game gets the hate it does. Next up, of course, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And of course, that was recently announced. It is going to be returning to EVO again, which is awesome. Personally, I would like to see Justin Wong actually enter the EVO tournament, given he is a multi-time champion of Marvel 2 as well as Marvel 3. Great game. I highly recommend trying to get this if you can find it, but keep in mind Xbox One and PS4 versions of this are relatively rare, as this was physically only released exclusively through GameStop, which is why you'll find it a lot harder to find nowadays. Also, Attack on Titan 2. A pretty good game if you like your action-packed thriller type of games. This is a perfect game for you then. Also involved, of course, Koei Tecmo was involved, which is one of the reasons the gameplay is actually overall solid and very well loyal to the actual anime. Next up, Borderlands the Handsome Collection, which includes, weirdly enough, only Borderlands the pre-sequel and Borderlands 2, which I find kind of weird. The fact it doesn't have regular Borderlands, I still find this collection kind of bizarre. You would think, given it's a collection, would have the 3, but whatever, I guess. Next up, a game I have very mixed opinions on. Crackdown 3. I mean, the action is over the top and crazy, but still. Now, keep in mind, though, I can't compare it to the previous Crackdown games, as I never played Crackdown 1 or 2. So this is the only one in the series I've actually ever played. Next up, of course, game that's going to be free next month on PS4, Code Vein. Basically, it's anime take on Dark Souls, or Dark Souls Anime Edition, however you want to call it. I do like the creature designs and everything in the game. And like Dark Souls, it has a good challenge, of course. Also like Dark Souls, it's distributed by Namco Bandai, so there's that also. But if you like anime style, like art style wise games, but you also want a good challenge, here's a game I highly recommend then looking into getting. Next up, Dragon Age Inquisition. Pretty solid game overall. Still not as good as Origins, though. Then we have For Honor, which overall is an interesting game. I don't know why they have it registered as a fighting game, though. It is not a fighting game. Just saying. Next up, Fallout New Vegas. Technically it's a 360, but it got a weird re-release with an Xbox One case and have them both on the cover. This is, of course, like it says, Ultimate Edition. It includes all of the DLC content and everything, which is the reason to have this the definitive way to play the game. Next up, Halo, the Master Chief Collection, which still has had, even to this day, some issues and bugs, unfortunately, but luckily most of those issues from early on had been fixed over the years. Next up, of course, obviously I'm going to have this in the video, Killer Instinct 2013. The reboot, well, sort of reimagining, and ended up far surpassing the original KI games. Absolutely love Killer Instinct. In my top 3 favorite, like absolute top 3 favorite fighting games of the past over decade of the entire 2010s. It's probably like my number 2 favorite game of that time period, fine game-wise. Love a lot of the redesigns. Love the new characters introduced, like, obviously, characters such as Arya and others. Next up, another interesting game, made by some of the same people who worked on Alan Wake, Quantum Break, which is interesting game, and like it says right there, it's sad this game has not gotten the same recognition that Alan Wake did. It has not been nearly as lucky, which is unfortunate as this game is actually solid, great game. I wish more people would give Quantum Break a chance. Next we have technically also 360, but this is the ultimate version with all the content included, including the zombies and everything. Red Dead Redemption Game of the Year edition. I have not actually even played this yet, so I have no real opinion on the game. Next we have, weirdly enough, more of an episodic format, which is kind of weird for Resident Evil. Resident Evil Revelations 2 is an interesting game. I still like the first one a bit more, but still it's interesting, plus the fact you have the introduction of, like, Wesker's sister and other things make this game definitely unique and different from our RE games. Next up, Rise of the Tomb Raider. Another overall solid game. I actually think I still like, though, probably the first of the newer series the most. I still have not played those Shadows, so I can't give an opinion on it, but Rise is still a pretty solid overall game in my perspective. Next up, pretty much easily my favorite exclusive on the Xbox One, well, besides KI. Of course, done by Insomniac Games, Sunset Overdrive, sort of a spiritual successor of sorts to the great Jet Grind Radio and Jet Set Radio Future. I love the tone, the fact it's a post-apocalyptic world, but it's super colorful, and I appreciate that. It's nice to see something a bit different. Also, it was one of the earlier open world type of games. Third-person action game, but it's a blast to play. I still, to this day, highly recommend Sunset Overdrive to anyone. This was a game I got for, I believe, $1. Yeah, but that's because it's just the base vanilla version of Elder Scrolls Online. Haven't actually played the game, so I have no real opinion on it. Next up, probably one of the best modern horror games, that is The Evil Within 2. It's actually, I think, creepier than the first game overall, just some of the creature designs, but that's the thing, I love The Evil Within, both 1 and 2, for the unique creatures and stuff. Like, I haven't seen a game more creative with creature designs and horror like this since probably Silent Hill. A criminally underrated, not a lot of people talk about, The Sinking City, which of course is a take on the Cthulhu mythos, obviously, as there's Cthulhu. This is more of a survival crafting game, so just know that if you're at all curious, as you can usually on sale get this game dirt cheap. You can get this physical at GameStop for, I believe, something like either $7.99 or $9.99, something like that. So it's super cheap regardless. Next up, another game you can get very cheap. An interesting take is the Techromancer. Though you really only have one power, unfortunately, in the game. The power over electricity. It's a shame you don't have multiple different things to use. It's an interesting game. And a very cheap game. my introduction, of course, to the Titanfall universe. Original classic Titanfall. Which actually, surprisingly, occasionally I have checked, and there's still occasionally people playing this game online to this day. That's because, online experience-wise, Titanfall 1 is great with the online gameplay, and this has come from someone who's not a big fan of multiplayer, like online shooting games, and yet even I like this. So I should say something. Then we have a Warhammer game, in fact, the only Warhammer game I believe I have. Weirdly enough. Last of the normal stuff, of course, the game also I find myself defending a lot, that being We Happy Few, which I think the game deserves more love than it gets. Just personal perspective. Okay, second to last, we have Destiny the Taken King, which is great overall. This is the one, basically, way I played Destiny the most, was this on the Xbox One. Absolutely love the Taken King. Last is a special collector's edition of Ori and the Will of the Wisp. Yeah, as you see, includes steelbook, game disc art book, piano collection, music CD, original soundtrack, music MP3 download code. So yeah, it does have several things in it, which is cool and very much appreciated. Yeah, I need to dust it off, so. But yeah, it is honestly a beautiful game. Love it. But with that said, that is it for this collections video. I'll see y'all next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel. Stay safe out there in YouTube land.